The Democratic stranglehold on the House and Senate could be broken by this time next year. Two longtime Senate Democrats, Byron Dorgan of North Dakota and Christopher Dodd of Connecticut, surprised the political world by announcing they would not seek re-election later this year. Joining them is another Democrat, Colorado Governor Bill Ritter, who's also opting out of a re-election bid. Joining us from our Washington, D.C. bureau is Politico reporter Josh Kraushaar. Good morning.
Good morning, Michelle.
So this is not necessarily about retirement. This is about poll numbers and the chance to get reelected, right?
Well, there's one thing that all three of those Democratic politicians had in common, and that they all were struggling to win re-election in 2010, and they were facing a very, very tough political environment. In Senator Dodd's case, it was his individual standing in Connecticut. He had suffered through record low approval ratings throughout the year, and this is someone who has coasted to re-election. He is a real icon in the state of Connecticut and has represented the state in the Senate for over 2 decades, and for him to be suffering with such a low political standing really put some pressure on the White House and Senate campaign officials to kind of coax him to step aside so a more electable Democrat could run in his stead. In North Dakota, Senator Dorgan was a little bit more popular and held pretty good approval ratings, but he was facing the prospect of a very serious Republican challenger in Governor John Hoeven, one of the most popular governors in the entire country. And if he ran against him, he was looking at a very, very tough re-election. Again, he saw the writing on the wall, didn't want to face a really bruising re-election bid, and he decided to step down instead.
Why, for both of these senators, did their poll numbers, their approval ratings dip?
Well, for Senator Dodd, his approval rating was very low throughout the year, and it was for several reasons. First off, he made the cardinal sin of any politician, which was leaving Connecticut and going to Iowa to run in the presidential caucuses in 2008. And I think a lot of voters in Connecticut thought he was abandoning them to some extent, and that he wasn't paying attention as closely as he used to the local issues in Connecticut. So that was the first problem. And later on, he also, as chair of the Senate Banking Committee, he drew fire for being connected to the bill that allowed AIG executives get very significant million-dollar bonuses, and he was viewed as not really being in touch with the people, and that started to pay a toll on his political standing back in Connecticut. His approval rating was in the 30 to 35% range, which is very, very low for an incumbent. And he couldn't, even though President Obama visited him, campaigned for him, fundraised for him, Vice President Biden came up to Connecticut, his numbers just couldn't improve enough. And he decided to see the writing on the wall. He saw the writing on the wall and decided that he wasn't going to be running for re-election.
We always hear about that magic number, 60 seats in the Senate. So how is this going to affect the balance of power with Republicans?
Well, in Dodd's case, Democrats have a much better chance at holding on to Dodd's seat. It's a very Democratic state. President Obama still holds very strong approval ratings there, and Richard Blumenthal, the state's popular attorney general, will be running in his place. So in Connecticut, it actually benefits the Democrats politically. In North Dakota, with Senator Dorgan, Democrats are now very, very worried that they're going to lose that seat. North Dakota is a very Republican state, and it looks like Governor Hoeven will be entering that Senate race, and he's the early favorite for the Republicans to pick that seat up. So all in all, it's a wash, but it speaks to the larger political environment, which is growing very, very worrisome for Democrats. When you see veteran senators like Dodd and Dorgan, and when you see a lot of veteran blue dog Democrats in the House deciding to step down, not face the voters for another year, they see the writing on the wall, and they see a worsening political environment heading into the November midterms.
Such an interesting political landscape. All right, Josh Kraushaar from Politico, thanks so much for your insight and for being with us.
Thanks for having me.